Yeah, come on. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What's up, man?
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Yeah, one thing we've been discussing lately is the common pitfall people usually fall in when they make their first 100K or their first million. So, inshallah, today let's discuss a bit more about it. Let's dive into it. And yeah,
Okay,
enjoy the conversation, inshallah.
inshallah.
What do you think happens from your experience, right? What happens after you make your first 100K?
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. After people make their first 100K, that's a very interesting question because one of the things we always mention is that people generally, um, the truth comes out of them, shall we say. Once a person gets 50,000 or 100,000, we always like to say that money is like it's a magnifying glass. It
That's
will
right.
magnify who you really are.
It's a
So,
revealer.
exactly. So the reality is that one of the things that you and I have always discussed, if you really want to know who a person is, give them either some power or give them some money.
Yeah.
50,000 or 100,000, that's probably the sweet spot. Because 100,000, as I think we saw in a video not too long ago, people tend to think that's a lot of money. But
Yes.
100,000 is really not a lot of money. It can literally go just like that if you're not careful.
Well, if it's a lot of
So
money if you've never made it before.
if
But
you've never made
once
it
you've
before, it's a lot,
once
it
you've
feels like it's
made
a lot
it,
of money.
you've tasted it before, then you realize how quick it can go.
Exactly.
So therefore, you know, okay, it's not a lot. But when you've never
Exactly.
made it, then you think, oh, it's a lot, and how am I going to spend it? I mean, it's a lot of money, not to get it wrong, by the way. It's a lot of money in the sense that
Yeah,
yes, the average person don't have 100,000 or don't make 100,000. So it's a lot of money.
exactly.
But
It's a lot of money
you know,
from
on the
that
scale of
standpoint.
things, I mean, yeah, it's an amount that can easily be, can easily go basically if you don't plan it well.
Exactly. So quick question though. Are you talking about Are we talking about if a person saves up their first 100K or he made his first 100K in business or whatever it may be? That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, this could be either save or made it from business and you have it with you. I'm not talking about you've made it in history and it's not there. No,
Right.
thinking about having that 100K in your bank, knowing that I have 100K in my bank account
Mm.
from my
And you
business,
can do whatever you want to do with it, right?
and
If
this
a
is
person
from
got has
profit.
100K in their
This is
bank
from
account,
profit. This is from profit, or I've worked hard and over the years I've saved 100K, or I've done a deal and I've been able to make 100K by commission or whatever
right?
it is. Having that 100K in your bank account. What
Yeah, I
what what
mean,
happens to people after they make their first 100K?
goes back to the same thing we mentioned, the first thing we mentioned. People can, the truth can come out, can be revealed concerning a person. But likewise, I believe 100K, man, is a sweet spot to be able to do a lot of things with. I believe it was what's Warren Buffett's partner that this passed away. Was his name Archie Bunker or something? Archie Bunker? Well, I forget his name.
Um,
I
no,
forget
no,
his name.
no, no, no. Is it Charlie?
Charlie Munger.
Yes, yes, yes,
Archie
Charlie.
Bunker. That's the name of an actor. Yeah, Charlie Munger. He
Yes.
mentioned the importance of getting your first 100K. He mentioned something similar as it relates to this. And it's kind of like a sweet spot if you think about it, because there are things from a business standpoint that you can do with 100K, man. You can do,
Oh
there's
yeah,
some people that can turn 100K into a million or
yeah.
more. You understand? If you put it in the right hands. So I would say,
Well, after you've learned your lessons, yeah, then you know how to turn 100K into a million.
exactly after you learn your lessons. It's hard to say, how a person will react if they've never had that type of money before. Because I've seen people lose 50,000, 60,000. I've seen people lose, somewhat lesser amounts than that. So if it's put in the wrong hands, it seems like 100K, a person could just run through that, man. But
Mm.
a person, if a person, I would say, imagine you with 100K and you go seek advice from someone who has that experience with not only making money but also losing money and knows what it's like. Seeking some sort of mentorship from there, I think it opens up a different door where you're able to now channel those resources in the right place, inshallah. And you're able to, as we like to say, stand on the shoulders of a giant, because a lot of times people are out here just trying to do things themselves. And
Yeah.
one of the things I would do, perhaps if I had that was my first 100K saved up and I had no idea what to do, probably one of the first things I would think to do is to find someone who's been there and done it, someone who has a blueprint in any particular industry, and I would try to use that once again, as we say, seed money, because that's seed money, and
Yeah.
that's a large stack right there to be able to implement something. That's a large amount to be able to plant some seeds, inshallah,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
if you
100%.
use it properly. If you use it properly.
100%. 100%. 100%. I mean, just generally, obviously, often what usually happen, and I see that a lot, and I speak to a lot of people who go through this phase. I'll say most people, right? Unless it's the guy that he comes from money and he's been financially educated from young and really understand how money really works and how to really, really you know, move money around, basically. But if you're talking about your average footballer, your average guy that worked hard and eventually made it and became a celebrity. The average guy that, create content and eventually his channel just took off and he started making good money as a YouTuber. Your average uh, athlete or whatever, then, you know, that's made money. Then most of them are not financially educated, or most people that actually make
Yeah.
money are not financially,
Agree.
unless it's a guy that works in finance, right? And he's a high
Agree.
paid guy. He works in finance, investment banker, and whatnot. And he's been able to obviously make some good money. He kind of honestly really understand how money works because that's what
Mhm.
he does. You know what I mean?
That's the field.
So
Yeah.
that kind of guy, um, he knows how to, maneuver around it. But still, it doesn't necessarily mean that that kind of guy don't fall into some of these pitfalls or some of these traps that most people fall into when
Absolutely.
they make their first 100K. Because when the person make their first 100K, what usually happens? They go through a phase, right? So I'll give example. You find a person that this person is just used to basically his risk appetite, for example, is £1,000, right? Because maybe he works and he earns maybe 4 or 5 grand a month from his work. And therefore, if he wants to invest in something where he can afford to lose, where he wouldn't care, right? If he
Mhm.
does lose it, in the sense that he's willing to lose, it's maybe £1,000, right? Because he knows obviously he earns about maybe 4 or 5 grand a month, and the following month,
Right. Right. Right.
he's able to replace that, even if he loses it, or maybe in 2 months, right? Now, such a person, let's say such a person before making 100K, when you ask them, what would you do if you have 100K? They're like, oh, that's a lot of money. I don't even know what I'm going to do. How am I going to spend it? That's a lot. Yeah.
And like you say, he's gonna think, how do I spend it?
Yeah. How
And
do
then
you
you
like,
go,
oh my God, that's a lot of money. 100,000. They're like, wow, if I have 100,000, how would I?
and you notice that key word right there. You said,
Hmm.
like you said, many people ask themselves that question: how do I spend it?
Yeah,
Versus
because
how do I
usually that's the
utilize
expression, that
it?
I get when I ask somebody. Now, that same person now, give him 100K, right? And watch what happens. Now, straight away, when you make 100K, there's a psychological shift, right? Yes, obviously, let him make 100K commission, right? Say it's in sales. Let him make 100K commission. By the way, a lot of sales guys, by the way, they blow the money before it even comes on the commission. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot. They rip through that money in no time because
never close.
again,
Mm-hmm.
the same problem, right? But let's say
Yes.
I make 100K, on a sale deal, on a deal commission. Now, that joy of making 100K, number one, kicks in. The second is he feels that I have a lot of money. I'm the money
I
guy. I
feel
have
like I
money.
have a lot
I've
of
got
money.
money. Oh, that see straight away psychologically, the mind shift. There's a mind shift because this is the same guy that was used to maybe 1,000, 2,000, and his risk appetite is 1,000. He can afford to buy £1,000 something because he makes few thousands a month, and yeah, he knows he'll make it back. But when this guy has 100K now, and this same person before 100K, if you said to him, "Oh, would you buy a watch for 20 grand?" Like, no way, buy a watch for 20 grand? Are you mad? That's what they'll tell you.
But now he's got that
And then
100K.
when he has 100K now, right, that same person, right, in that same skin, now will tell you, oh, this mind starts switching, like, oh, you know what? Yeah, I can get myself a 20 grand watch, Yeah. And he goes and buys a 20 grand watch. Because why? I have 80K left.
I got 80K left.
You know what? I can get a range. And then what? He goes and gets himself a Range Rover, right? Whether it be a second hand or whatever, oh, this one costs about what? 25 grand.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's a used one or whatever. Oh, yeah, buy. You see how quickly he's spending 100 grand without even realizing, right? Without even realizing. And he'll do that,
People have spent a million like that.
right? And he will do that. And by the time he actually wake up, that his 100K status is actually almost gone. It's when he's got about 10, 20 grand left. And he's thinking,
Yep.
oh, now he's thinking, oh, I don't want to go back to that same guy again. That same 5 grand, 5 grand,
Mm-hmm.
12 grand a month guy again, right? Even though he still got a job, I don't want that status of not being someone who has 100K in the bank or 100K in his name, right? So I don't want to go back to that. But well, here at this point, you've got a number of liabilities. You've got a car that you're paying for, right? You got a watch that you bought 20 grand, depending on what type of watch. If the value, I'm not really a watch person, so I don't know much about it. If
Right.
the value goes up or if the value stays the same or it decreases in value, probably what other liabilities that's drinking from him, right? So that mindset shift there is where a lot of people fall into. Like athletes, for example, when athletes make their first, they get a first paycheck, they blow it like most athletes, as a matter of fact, most athletes, um, if it wasn't for their monthly paycheck that they're getting, they're broke.
100%.
They're broke because
100%.
what he earned last month most likely is gone. Obviously, not to say
It's going.
a lot of them are being wise now. Yes, they do save, they invest in things, but most of them make a lot of mistake even when it comes to investment. Because why? Because you have money, it doesn't mean, oh, I can invest in this year. You don't even know about the market properly. And you going in it, you're trusting somebody fully. And most of the time, the strategy that they use for investment, a lot of time is wrong. Because when I speak to people, right, and they say, oh, I invested in XYZ and I invested in XYZ, and I dig more into it, you realize, well, wait, you don't have no control. It's your investment, but really,
Usually that's the case.
you don't have
Usually
control.
that's the case
You don't
because
have
they
any
haven't
control. What
been.
shows that this investment really belong to you? Like, I'll give an example. I spoke to a guy, this guy obviously came on as a client that I had a discussion with, and his business is making a lot of money. He's have a branch in another location, and I'm like, wait, so is that yours? Because yeah. And I'm digging into more things, asking him, okay, what controls you? How much you have in that account? Because I don't know. I have to rely on that guy in that location, that partner, to ask him. There's nothing that shows that that business is yours, right? That's obviously this what happens when you get a lot of money, when you start making money, you don't know how to utilize it. You kind of like,
You don't know how to
it's
utilize
almost
it.
as if you lose control. See that
Mm-hmm.
mindset shift because you start to feel like, oh, I have a lot of money, I have money, right? So you go into this sleeping mode, right? Sleeping mode when it comes to how easy you let go of the money without really checking. Someone who works in finance, by the way, who has a financial background like investment banker, they have a strategy, they have a process that they
Yeah.
always when it comes to investing because this is what they do all day long, all day, every
And to your point right
they do
there,
it for
Range.
other people, right?
Hopefully, but even with those people, hopefully they are utilizing their own advice. They're
Oh
taking their
yeah,
own advice
oh
because
yeah.
what
This
sometimes even happens with people in the financial area, um, you know, they end up not following their own advice, or they end up dealing with their own
well,
finances in a different way versus with the way they would deal with somebody else's finances.
well,
Does it
this
make sense?
yeah, these things
So,
I'm
for example, they used to dealing with a couple hundred million in somebody's portfolio. When they're dealing with their own portfolio, if they're not skilled in dealing with their own portfolio, perhaps they won't follow those same rules that they would normally follow.
oh
And
yeah,
see,
yeah.
this is it's a different trap right there altogether. Because rarely do you see somebody, for example, in that area really building wealth. They're staying in the same place where they're just working for somebody until they're 50, 60 years old in that area if they're not careful. In that same
Well,
area.
yeah, investment bankers generally, a lot of them do stay in that career, but then a lot of them too, one thing they do actually invest in other areas because they're exposed to this. This is what they're doing all
Yeah,
day long.
they
So
get
it's like
exposed
because
to
they're exposed to it, they
it.
become, what's the word for it? It's very tempting for them to obviously start doing that for themselves as well. So
Absolutely.
some of them, because they get paid good, they stay in that job, but also have portfolios outside that they're able to make good money from, which is good. That's why obviously some of them are able to buy some good houses and whatnot. But most people, most high earners or most whoever fall into this trap. A lot of these things I'm talking about is human psychology in the sense that it
Mm-hmm.
happens to a lot of people. The average guy
Happens to a lot of people.
that makes 100K, most people fall into this. I mean, I've spoken to a number of people. I mean, you and I generally,
So many situations, yeah.
we fell into this trap. So we're well experienced when it comes to, this
Mhm.
area here because from experience of, making millions and losing millions. Alhamdulillah, we've learned,
We can relate.
from this. So,
We can relate to it.
um,
Definitely.
again, when I see people that, have fallen into this, easy, you can identify where the issue is. And also when I see people that actually, when I speak to people that have made it, right? Again, those same people, it's easy to tell them what they need to be aware of. The things that the traps that they need to be aware of so they don't fall into it and losing that money. But majority of
Mm-hmm.
them fall into this. It's just a human psychology.
It's human psychology.
Yeah, it's a human psychology. Even investment banker, financial guys, all these guys, generally money itself. If you're gonna get money and if you don't have a plan, what you're gonna do before you get the money, majority of the time it goes. Women, as a matter of fact, are usually good with this. They will have money and save it, and they won't touch it.
I think women are more.
And they will, and
I
save it,
remember
and they
one.
won't touch
There's
it.
a, there's a
Or
very well
they'll
there's
buy.
a very well known marketer. For example, you probably know who he is as well if we were to bring him up. But he was making millions, but it was his wife who actually showed him how to save millions, how to save, and
Well,
how to make sure that he's utilizing his capital properly. Because one thing, as we mentioned in a number of videos before, even with a high level paid athlete, when you're making millions as an athlete, some people are not able to tell the difference between seed money and fruit money. They
Yeah.
can't tell the difference between the two. And this is
No.
one of the things I see with people. They're not able to tell the difference between that money which is active or passive. Money that they're supposed that's active, generally speaking, you need to be utilizing a portion of that as seed money so you can plant seeds that will grow trees. And when that fruit starts to grow on those trees, alhamdulillah, that's the money you need to be buying your luxury vehicles from, your cars, I mean your houses, all of this stuff you want to bling from. That's supposed to be from your fruit money.
Yeah, I
Most
mean,
people are taking that seed money and doing that. And I think we'll be touching down on this in some other
yeah, I mean,
videos
this topic here is
that
something
we
we
set
could
up.
really go a lot
I don't know
more.
how much more time we got on this video, by the way.
Um, I don't know actually. You know, so it's something that we can obviously over the time, inshallah, we will touch a lot more and more and more on this, inshallah. But
Inshallah.
yeah, this is what happened. This is one of the things that happened, by the way. This one of the things, a number of things happen when you make your first 100K, right? A
Yeah.
number of things happen, which a lot of the time most people lose control, don't know how to deal with it or control it. But this is one of the things happened in terms of the 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 mindset shift of have a lot of money, and
Mm-hmm.
this
Agreed.
first 100K, your first million, and you really learn once you've lost the money. Yeah, you only
100%.
you only wake up to this once you've lost the money. And like you said in the very beginning, um, if you was making your first 100K, right? If you hadn't made your first 100K and you was making your first 100K and you made your first 100K, then the first thing you would have done is find someone who actually have been there, done that,
Absolutely.
and kind of like seek the advice or follow a blueprint
Absolutely.
that they follow.
Absolutely. Because
Because
it's
the
more than
key
enough to be able
here,
to seek somebody's advice one on one.
the
You
goal
can take a
here is
portion of
not
that to be able to seek their advice one on one
the goal
and
here is
get that
not
one on one
losing.
attention.
That's right. Because the goal here is not losing that money. It's keeping that money. And yeah, unfortunately, this is what happens. Most people lose that money. Most
Most
people,
people.
most people
Most people.
lose that money and not keep it. So inshallah, I think we can do more. We can have more discussion on this over the time in terms of the different things that happen when you make your first 100K and how to deal with it. How
Definitely.
to work
Definitely.
around it.
We're definitely going to have to touch on this more, inshallah.
Yes.
Definitely. Because it's a very interesting topic. And perhaps, people want to hear more regarding it, inshallah.
Yeah. Inshallah. Inshallah. Naam. Jazakallah khairan.
Why, yeah, bro.
Assalamu alaikum.
Islam to be catching.